The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Hello and welcome to Weighted Donuts. I'm Wayne Unger and I'm here with my son Wyatt Unger. And this week we have a special guest. We have former ESPN play-by-play announcer Bob Picozzi. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Wyatt. Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Thank you. So we have three Yankee fans here. But before we get to the Yankees, because I know it's probably 90% of the baseball talk today, I just, let's kind of like veer off, because I have a feeling if we start talking about the Yankees, we'll do the whole show. So I'm just curious. So whenever I talk to a fan around my age, some of the things I like to ask is how they feel about baseball today. And what I mean is, how are you with bat flips, staring at home runs, fist pumps by pitches after strikeouts? How do you feel about all that?
Well, I mean, I like you, I grew up in the 50s, and baseball was my father's favorite sport. And so it's the first sport that he introduced me to, and it became my favorite sport, and it's still my favorite sport. It's my favorite sport to play and my favorite sport to follow. I've kind of given up, Wayne, on getting upset over the way athletes conduct themselves on the court and on the field. Guys like LeBron James is one of the great. I think LeBron James is probably the second greatest player in NBA history. But I wish he wouldn't, beat his chest, after he did something on the court like blocking a shot or dunking. But you know what? A lot of guys do. I mean, Steph Curry's a very likable guy, and, you see the way he shimmies after he makes a three. And, we grew up at a time when that was considered showing up the opposition. If I were coaching, I wouldn't allow my players to do that. And when I coached my son and in youth sports, I didn't allow my players to do that. But, I guess I decided a long time ago, if I'm going to allow myself to get upset every time something like that happens, I'm going to be upset 24/7. So I just kind of ignore it. It is something, it's a little different when what they do is directed to their opponent, like what Francisco Lindor did in that Sunday night baseball game a couple of weeks ago to the Yankees. But, guys taking their time out of the box and staring at the home runs and throwing the bats, so many guys do it now that I've kind of just given up on, trying to rule that out of sports.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've actually, I can't say it bothered me a lot, but I remember I used to be like, well, I wouldn't do that. I wasn't taught like that. And, but to me, I kind of enjoy it. I think the players even enjoy it. Like, it's almost become like a gamemanship thing, like an entertainment thing, like a sideshow. Just like some of the end zone celebrations that were banned in football years ago, it almost became like, like they would, okay, how clever can I get? So, yeah, it like I say, it doesn't bother me. I think it's part of the entertainment, and you know what? If it draws fans to the game and keeps the game alive, I'm okay with it. In between the lines, they still got to play the game the same way.
Yep.
So
that's the way I look at it. Yep.
Yeah. Wyatt, I'll let you jump in anytime.
As far as celebrations go, I like them. I think that there is a such thing as getting too excessive. It all depends on, the situation in the game and what that player did before they celebrated, like on the field. But no, I do think it is good for the game. But again, it just goes back to, like, if you're getting blown out, then I really don't want to see you celebrating if you get like one hit. But in like a close game, important game, do it. It gets your clubhouse excited, gets them pumped up. There's really not a negative to it in most situations.
Yeah. To me, it's, and you know what, it also goes back to the other thing. So, I mean, years ago, if somebody, at the last game, somebody wins a World Series, I mean, of course, there's plenty of exuberance. So to me, it's like, it goes back to the old saying, you don't want to celebrate too soon. So there's that saying, find humility before humility finds you. So, but, Wyatt, did you have any questions for Bob? I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Wayne, before we change the subject, the one thing I still love about sports is, and particularly in baseball, I love when there's a walk-off hit, the way the players celebrate. And not just the players on the teams who are playing games late in the season that are really meaningful. I mean, you can have two teams who are hopelessly out of the pennant race, and if somebody gets a walk-off hit in game 159, all of the players are on the field mobbing them. And and that reminds us all, I think, of how we were like little boys, and we did that kind of thing. Like when the Yankees got the walk-off win on Sunday, I think Andrew Velazquez was doing his Usain Bolt impersonation. He went from the dugout to Aaron Judge, halfway between first and second base, so quickly, and to see the look on his face. And of course, if you know his story, kid from the Bronx, 3 organizations gave up on him. He's not a 21-year-old rookie. He's a 27-year-old rookie. He grew up a Yankee fan, dreaming of playing in Yankee Stadium. And now all of a sudden, and he was just added to the roster a day or two earlier, because of an injury. And here he is on the field celebrating with his teammates as they just got into the playoffs. And that kind of brings a smile to my face. Now, I didn't have the TV on long enough last night after the last out was recorded, so I can't say I would have felt that way about the Red Sox last night. And believe me, you really have to live in Connecticut like I do to truly, truly appreciate the extent of this rivalry. When you live in Connecticut, and I live kind of in the middle of the state, you are surrounded by fans of both teams. I mean, I don't think there's a street in my town that doesn't have both Yankees and Red Sox fans, and some households have both Yankees and Red Sox fans. And I mean, there aren't many Red Sox fans in New York and New Jersey, and aren't many Yankees fans in Massachusetts, but Connecticut is truly the land divided. And so really the only thing worse than losing to the Red Sox in a season ender last night at Fenway, I suppose, would have been to lose to the Red Sox in a season ender at Yankee Stadium, in which I said to my wife last night, I said, at least I'm glad now it was at Fenway, because otherwise I'd be walking to the Metro North Station, and I wouldn't get home till like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I would be thinking about nothing but the loss and the fact that the season ended on the way home. Instead, I just turned the TV off, walked our dog, and went upstairs and went to bed. But I do like the fact that part of sports has not changed. When something happens that is cause for a team to celebrate, they celebrate. And I'm still friends with my high school soccer teammates, and we were fortunate enough to win back-to-back state championships my junior and senior year. And I'll never forget those days celebrating with them on the field, the day we won those 2 championships. So I really remember in the World Series last year, was it the World Series game or a league championship? I think it was a World Series game, when Brett Phillips, who's, your typical journeyman, average ball player, got the walk-off hit, and his teammates couldn't catch him. He was like zigzagging throughout the outfield, and they couldn't catch him. And I mean, I think that brings a smile to my face to see these players, and some of them make so much money, and yet when it comes right down to it, they're playing because they want to win, and when they win as a team, they just have unbridled celebration, and I think that's a wonderful thing to see.
I totally agree, and Yeah, and I get it. And it's funny, Andrew Velasquez, he didn't just grow up in the Bronx. If I remember correctly, I think his parents live like on Walton Avenue, which is like really close to Yankee Stadium. Like Walton Avenue, like if you're on 161st Street and what is that, Jerome? Well, it's actually River Avenue by the train. If you walk up toward the concourse, in between the concourse and River, I believe is Walton Avenue. That's how close he lived
to the
stadium.
Right. I've been on that street, driving home from a game. You're absolutely right.
So, yeah. So, Wyatt, go ahead.
So, I guess maybe we should get into the Yankees a little bit now. So there's no denying changes need to be made, but I think as with three Yankee fans here, we could come together and have a good discussion here. But Bob, what exact changes would you say definitely need to be made with this, not just the team on the field, but the organization?
Well, Wyatt, I'm a big believer in not making change for change's sake. And I think if you're going to make a big move, like changing your general manager or changing your field manager, you only want to do it if you're going to improve the situation. So I get it. If people want to just look at Cashman and say, look, he inherited a ready-made team in 1998, and they won a couple more championships. But since then, he's only won one, and they haven't been to a World Series in 12 years. And if you want to use that as your justification to make a change there, I understand that. There probably isn't another organization in all of sports that wouldn't have made a change by now in that position. Not pointing to any one move or two moves or three moves that he made that didn't work out, but just the bottom line, you're the New York Yankees. You've won 27 World Series and 40 pennants, and we have not been in a World Series now for 12 consecutive seasons. I would get that. I personally would make that move. And then as for the field manager, I'm actually a big Aaron Boone fan. I really am. I get a kick. I go to a lot of games, NFL and Major League Baseball. I'm a New York Giants season ticket holder. And it's almost comical to hear what some of the fans say. Well, it's like reading Facebook. These people have no credibility, and when you hear some of the things they say, you just shake your head, wonder, how could you possibly say something that is so foolish and untrue, and how can you be so misinformed? So I ignore the noise about Boone. Last night, somebody on Facebook, he's a Facebook friend of mine, he mentioned Boone, and I said, well, what did Boone do wrong last night? And he said, well, batting Gallo fourth and batting Gardy sixth. And I said, do you think if he batted them in other positions in the order, they would have scored 5 more runs and won the game? I mean, he always puts Gallo behind Stanton for obvious reasons. And they really haven't had a leadoff hitter since LeMahieu got hurt, so he tried putting, a fairly high on-base percentage guy at the top of the order, Rizzo, and so you slid everyone up a spot. So I don't mind Boone. I mean, remember Boone in 2018 in the playoffs, his first year, he was slow in pulling the trigger on both Severino and Sabathia, removing them from the game in the division series against the Red Sox. Well, last night was the polar opposite. I wanted him to take out Cole. In fact, I said to my wife, I'd take him out right now, and then he comes out of the dugout and does it. I was surprised that he did it, but I think it was absolutely the right move. I think he's grown into the position. I like the fact that he never throws his players under the bus. I think his players really enjoy playing for him. So I wouldn't make either of those moves. Now, do you guys want to chime in there before I tell you how I feel about making personnel moves? Players?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know what? I think he made the right move in pulling Cole. No doubt about it. But I think other times throughout the season, he has gone too long with him, or even gone too long with relievers, particularly when you got a fresh bullpen. It's sometimes it's just pretty obvious, particularly when you leave the guy in and hitters just tee off on them. But the thing, but going back to Cashman. Now, one, I'm not one of these Yankee fans who say, well, we should be winning a World Series every few years. I mean, it's just not like it used to be. It's not like American League and National League, and so if you win the pennant, it's just you and another team. Or even when they first started the playoffs, there was just a best three. The first playoffs was 69. I think it was best 3 out of 5, and stuff like that. It is just it's a lot different. But I don't like the organizational philosophy in the way they comprise the team, and in the way they have the team approach the game. And I've been saying this for many, many years. A team can slug their way to the postseason, but very few teams slug their way to a championship. The games get so much tighter. You're not playing the Baltimore Orioles, who we actually had a lot of trouble with this year anyway, but you're not playing the Orioles. You're not playing the Royals. You're not playing all these last place teams. In the playoffs, in the postseason, you're playing the winning teams, and some teams that might even have a better winning record than you do, and you have to be able to create runs, produce runs. So I think going with their defense has been lax for years. And also just swinging for the fences. I think a little bit of Anthony Rizzo rubbed off on the Yankees when he came over. Rizzo is a guy that always, chokes up with 2 strikes. I mean, I think it's like, and everybody should do that. Everybody should shorten their swing when you got 2 strikes, because even if you don't get the hit, you have a better chance of fouling balls off. You're increasing the pitch count, and the more you increase the pitch count, the better chance you have of the pitcher making a mistake. And listen, I know the bunt is for the most part dead, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So the whole organizational philosophy starts at Cashman and his analytics department. I think they're just too much in love with the 3 absolute outcomes of a walk, a strikeout, or a home run. So with that, I think there should be a total house cleaning, only because if they bring in another general manager, they're not gonna, he's gonna want to pick his own. But earlier in the year, when everybody was getting on Boone, my comment was, I wish they would say, okay, we're going to let you manage the way you think you should manage. We'll give you all the information you want, but we'll let you manage. But once you're in the game itself, it's not like he's calling the front office. He's not like he's calling the analytics department. What should I do here? What should I do there? So I think some of it is on him too. And so yeah, he had a winning record this year, but he certainly had the horses to get there. Wyatt, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I mean, he does good things, he does bad things, but primarily he's the fall guy in the organization. 2019, I give him a lot of credit for that, but ever since, it's just like, not all of it's on him, but some of it is. He has a negative he's led the Yankees to a negative postseason record since he was hired. I mean, game 162, Sunday, he did a great job, I think. I would have liked to see Taillon go further, but he knew from yesterday he didn't use anybody important. So we had everybody available: Holmes, Loaizaga, Severino, Green, Chapman, basically the big five at this point. And he played that perfectly, in my opinion. But there's also just been so many times when Loaizaga came in at Fenway, gave up 3 straight hits, he left him in. And this is before we really saw Loaizaga as, in my opinion, the best reliever on the team. This is a lot earlier in the season. And back when Chapman was just dominating the ninth inning against Detroit, we decided to go with Wilson, who struggled a lot. And what do you know? He gave up the walk-off. So it's 50-50, but really as a manager, it can't be that way. But at the same time, not all of this is from him. So if you're going to get rid of Boone, you're going to have to get rid of guys in the front office too.
So, okay. Okay, Bob, you want to go to personnel now?
Yeah, my gosh, I don't remember an off season where they had to make so many decisions. It's obvious that there is they can get a very good shortstop in the free agent market. There are a number of them that, would certainly improve the team. I'm a little bit hesitant about Simeon because he's never really had a season like this. And I realize he played second base this year, but, he is a shortstop. I think the Dodgers have kind of soured a little bit on Seager, and also I think they made the decision as an organization. They probably felt that they didn't want to pay him what it would take to keep him, and that's why they went out and got Trey Turner. So, he's available. Baez, that's a risk because he's a great player, but, he has some baggage that he comes with him. He's very un-Yankee-like in his behavior. So I don't know about that. I think Story might be kind of like on the decline a little bit. And I don't think Correa is nearly as good offensively as any of those guys. But the fact remains that they can get a quality player by just writing a check at shortstop. So then that results in another decision. You have 3 guys to play 2 positions. Torres or LeMahieu could play second, and LeMahieu and Urshela can play third. I don't think I want to see LeMahieu play third base every day. Urshela's, a much better defensive player there. LeMahieu could always play first base, and you could decide to move on from Rizzo and trade Voit, which I suspect they'll try to do anyway. But they have to decide on Rizzo since he's a free agent. They have to decide. Once they decide what they're going to do with Rizzo, then what do they do with Voit? I don't think you're going to bring Voit back if Rizzo's going to be your everyday first baseman. And he doesn't have as much value now that he did a year ago because he's hurt so often, but I still think he has some value. It is interesting how Torres played much better offensively and defensively when they put him back to second. Last night, the 2 double plays he helped start, and then that play where he short-hopped the ball, a rocket that was hit right at his feet. I don't think he makes that play, at shortstop. He just never seemed comfortable there. So it's obvious he's not going back to shortstop anyway. And, Wade's not going to be your everyday shortstop, and Velasquez certainly isn't going to be. You signed LeMahieu to that big contract. Torres is much younger, and Urshela's younger. I don't know. Do you guys think LeMahieu has value on the trade market? I don't know whether he has, a no trade or, limited trade teams he wants to trade to. But, certainly I would think that the upside of Torres because of his age and the upside of Urshela because of his age is greater than LeMahieu. So I'm not so sure. It's not like I want to get rid of LeMahieu, but you don't want to bring all 3 of those guys back. Because there's only, one of them will probably get hurt, and then that'll solve the problem. But, he would be one of those guys would be a chip to trade to improve yourselves elsewhere. Now, as far as the outfield, I think in hindsight, getting Gallo was a mistake. I understand why you did it, but after seeing him play over and over again, I don't think he's the guy I want. He had a couple of really bad defensive plays, but I'm going to give him a mulligan for that. I think he's a very good outfielder who dropped a pop-up, who didn't take charge in another pop-up, threw the wrong base in a span of a couple of games. But other than that, I think he's an outstanding outfielder. He's an outstanding base runner. He hustles all the time. But, you know, he just strikes out. He has too many empty at-bats. And I just don't think, you know, he's too similar to Judge and Stanton with the all or nothing. And I don't think, you know, I just think he's a bad fit. So I think you have to go out and get an outfielder. This Gardner, you don't want Gardner to play every day. I think you need to go out and get an outfielder. You need to go out and get a shortstop. I think you need to go out and get a catcher. I think it's probably time to move on from Sanchez. And I guess I would probably try to sign Rizzo, but it depends what it would take. I mean, you know, I wouldn't just give him a contract for a limited number of years, but I think he brings a lot to the team with his leadership, and he's an outstanding fielder. So I think you trade Voit, you try to trade Gallo, you sign a shortstop, you try to trade Sanchez, and so that's and you clearly need at least one more starting pitcher. I don't know if I want to gamble on Kluber again. Unless you gamble, would he settle for another one-year contract? I don't know. I mean, with his injury history, I think that's a bad business decision to sign him to a multi-year deal.
Yeah. So I agree with some things. One, I don't bring Gardner back at all. The Yankees have an option on him where they can buy him off of like 1.1 or something. He also actually has a player option. So I think he can, I'm not sure the way it's structured, but he might be able to activate his player option at 2.3. But you know what? I still don't want him back. I don't even want him taking up the roster spot. Gallo isn't like, to me, he isn't like Stanton and Judge. If you watch him swing, you can just see how he just sweeps from his heels. So unless he would be open to, to changing that swing, I agree. He's just, it's not a fit. LeMahieu at third base, no, he's just, his legs just, he's not you don't want to put him at third. So you have to make a decision whether or not you're going to play him at second and actually try to capitalize on some trade value of Torres, which I wouldn't do, or play him at first and move on from Rizzo. But I like the fact that the Yankees had the lefty bat, but how much would it cost to sign Rizzo? I believe he's 31. He's going to be 32, and he turned down like 5 years, $70 million from the Cubs. So, like, again, how many years and what's it going to take to sign him? And then, of course, you also have to look at this. Judge will be is eligible, has one more year of arbitration. He's clearly going to get something in the vicinity of what Mookie Betts got before he, in his final year before he, which was like in the high 20s. So we still don't know what the collective bargaining agreement's going to be, what the luxury tax threshold is going to be. So yeah, it's a muddled mess. I've been always hanging on to hope with Sanchez for years, but I agree it's time to move on from him without a doubt. So that's the other thing. Well, you sign do you have space to sign a big free agent shortstop? You'd love to see Seager. I mean, he would be my number one choice without a doubt. But he's going to command a lot of money in a lot of years. So I don't know if the Yankees want to be in on that. I mean, because let's not forget, $35, $36 million a year for Cole. Chapman still makes big money. It just, and what are they, like I say, what are they going to do if they want to re-sign Judge and Stanton? Even with the money that Miami kicks in, there's a lot of dollars there to kind of figure out. Believe it or not, we had Kevin Kernan on, the former Post columnist on, and I said, you know what? I said, trade Judge after this year. I don't think you're going to have the room to sign him. And yes, dollar-wise, they can afford to go over the luxury tax threshold and pay the penalties, but the penalties that come with draft position, if compensation that you might get if someone signs a free agent, taking away your international signing pool money and all those other things, those are the other repercussions that a lot of people don't realize. So, but yeah, there's, and again, I'd like to see them remake the team a little bit with a different offensive philosophy. They don't need to become the Tampa Bay Rays, but I think they need to remake their offensive philosophy. I'll tell you what, give you a perfect example of a team that has a lot of hitting stars and got guys with power and everything else, but still maintain a solid offensive hitting philosophy of the Dodgers. And as well, and they play good defense. They run the bases. So, something along those lines. Wyatt.
There's a lot to unpack here. First, it's funny you mentioned that you're not telling the Yankees to be like the Rays offensively, but the Rays are essentially what the Yankees think they are. The Rays hit the ball in the air, and they really don't mind the offensive strikeouts. Rosarena, Lau, and Zunino are all well above average hitters that strike out at high rates. And really, Franco is the only guy on that team who limits his strikeouts. But onto the Yankees situation. First of all, Gallo does not seem like he's had an awful start in New York, but he's not going anywhere. He'll be playing right field, left field for us next year. Still, the defense and the base running helps, and we'll see if he sort of is done with his New York adjustment period that a lot of guys seem to struggle with. But moving on to the infield, LeMahieu, he wouldn't play third because it's just he already got injured doing it, and I think that if LeMahieu is healthy, I'm not saying we see 2020 or 2019 LeMahieu, but I think we'll see a good mix in between this year and what we got the last 2 years, which would produce a good leadoff hitter for us. And the thing is with Torres, people don't want him at short because they think that it affects him offensively, when he had no problem being an all-star in 2019 offensively playing shortstop. It's just he's bad on defense, but I've watched him at second, and it's not been much better. So I preferably with, LeMahieu taking second, Volpe, Peraza, Trey Sweeney. I would still love to get Corey Seager. I think throughout all of that, Gleyber is just not the guy for New York. As for catcher, my dad can back this up. I've been on the Kyle Higashioka train for a while, and I don't see him as a starter, but then you kind of have to wonder, what are they, not much in the trade market, and there's not much to find. There's really, no matter where they search, there's not much to find for this year, this offseason. So I don't see Gary getting moved as much as I would support it. And first base, Rizzo, again, it's years and it's how much money he makes in those years. But the hope is for me that it's not too much, because there's really no Yankee fan that shouldn't want Rizzo in 2022.
Okay. So, well, there we go. We got. I think we covered the state of the Yankees pretty well from three different but agreeable standpoints. That's a lot accomplished. So, anyway, Bob, I know that you've got some things to do, and actually, so do I. Actually, it's a long story, but yeah. I hope you'll come back again.
No, I'd love to. I'm like when you reached out to me and said, "Can you do this?" You saw my first answer was, "Well, not if it's during any of the baseball playoff games." So, as crushed as I was as a fan last night, that won't stop me from watching every pitch of every game for the rest of the postseason. And the one thing, I think some of baseball, the new rules they passed, are absolutely a joke. I mean, other sports don't pass rules that so dramatically change the game like they do with the purpose of trying to shorten the game by a few minutes. No matter what baseball has done, the work stoppages and the PEDs and this ridiculous rule that is just, heresy, where you start the extra inning with a runner at second base. I know that one's going away, thank God. They haven't been able to destroy the game for this fan yet.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
In 1981, when we lost a third of the season because of the strike, that's before I was a parent. So I used to go to a ton of games with my best friend, and we would always go to a game in the first series, first homestand. And before we got there, we would figure out which games we wanted to go to, and we would go to the ticket window, and we would buy tickets for games all season. And it was not at all unusual for us to buy tickets to like 20 or 25 games at one stop at the window. And so naturally, I was sitting on tickets to games that were lost to the strike. And when they announced that the strike had ended and it was late at night, and I used to work late at night. I used to be a local TV sports anchor, so I would get home at midnight, and, you can't unwind and go to bed right away when you do that for a living. And the strike got settled very late at night, and the first thing I did was I figured out which games moving forward that I wanted to exchange my tickets for. And my friend was so mad at baseball, both sides, for the strike happening, that he just decided he wanted to try to hurt them by not going to any more games that season. So no one has been able to figure out a way to ruin the game for me yet. They try really hard at times, but they haven't figured it out yet. I'm hopelessly addicted to the game, and I think that's proof that not all addictions are bad.
There you go. Yes, and on that note, I'll tell you what Major League Baseball did to the minor leagues. That's something that irks me, and you know what? We can talk about that next time, and because I hope there'll be a next time, and our schedule is very flexible. So generally, So thankfully, Wyatt is home early, and I'm like semi-retired, so we have a flexible schedule, and yes, we're kind of like on the same page with some different opinions, and I think that's great. So we hope to have you back soon.
I'd be glad to return. Thank you.
All right. Hey, Bob, you have a great day, and once again, thanks for coming on, and thank you, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the show.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.